My name is Maria and I'm working for Fingrid and the Market Development Department and working in this common project with Elering on the implementation of the FTRs on the Finnish-Estonian border. And today in this our second common webinar, I will be doing the moderating and the kicking off this webinar, and then we have Satu Viljanen and Airi Noor having the presentations. And for welcoming all of who is joining today's webinar. Today's I will go through shortly about the agenda. What we have. We have reserved 1.5 hours for discussions and the presentations, and we have quite a good time. So if you have any questions, you can raise the hands or ask questions. I think that if you raise the hands is the easiest one to get the floor to speak, or then you can add your questions in the chat box, and we take those while we go on with the presentations. And if you have any questions, so don't hesitate to ask. This is the second webinar. First one we had a couple of weeks ago. And today we are focusing on the explanations on this regional design and the annexes, which are now under consultations. So I will, in the beginning of the go through about the regional design document, and then afterwards Satu will go through about the explanation document on this. And then at the end, we shortly present you where we are with the project and what are the next steps. And I encourage you all, raise your hand if you have questions or put on the chat box. So I will take those in while we go. So welcome. I think we can kick off now. We have 40 participants, so I guess all interested are now joined. Well, yeah, maybe last slide is shortly show you about who are the contact. If you are interested to send emails, of course you can send emails or contact Erkki Sapo, Airi Noor from Elering side, and then Juha Hiekkala, Satu Viljanen from Fingrid, and myself, even I'm not there on the list, but good. Then I give the floor to Airi. Just a second, I will.
Thank you, Maria, for welcoming words and leading in this second webinar on long-term transmission rights on Estonian-Finnish border. My name is Airi Noor. I work for Elering Energy Markets Departments, and I've been involved in cross-border trading and risk hedging instruments offered by DSOs already for 9 years, and happy to be a part also for this project. And hereby I would like to introduce the regional design we are proposing for Baltic region, and what are the amendments we foresee for Estonian-Finnish border. So the regional design is something that all CCRs have to make according to the Forward Capacity Allocation Network Code Article 31. And there we have to set the details for the instruments for this region. We have had so far FTRs on Estonian-Latvian border for a long period already. And now in this project, we would like to introduce the instruments also for Finnish-Estonian border. And therefore, we propose amendment in regional design. Please note that there is no changes foreseen on Estonian-Latvian border, so everything will stay as it has been for many years already. But for Finnish-Estonian border, let's start from the beginning. So what directions, what instruments, and what timeframes? As you all know, then we have had increase in the congestion on Estonian-Finnish border, and the direction of the market flow is mainly from Finland to Estonia. So in Estonia and in Baltics, the prices are higher, and on the last years it has been higher significantly. And therefore, we are proposing that the products are only in one direction from Finland to Estonia, where the main flow goes, and that's the direction where the risk hedging is most needed. We are proposing FTR option. On last webinar we introduced how the FTRs work, and hereby I want to repeat that according to the network code, there are 3 possible options for the DSOs. We can have physical transmission rights, PTRs. We can have FTR options or FTR obligations. On one border, there can be only one product at a time. We are proposing FTR option. The reasoning is quite simple. Firstly, we have had FTR options on the Estonian and Latvian border, and we think it's easier for the market if you have the same product on all borders. And secondly, we see that even if there are BTRs in Central Europe borders, then on many borders they have changed from BTRs to FTRs. And even if there is BTR, then actually those BTRs or physical transmission rights are not nominated. Only 10% is nominated, and all the other products are let to be the use it or sell it principle, making them actual FTR option. So we do not see a point of introducing something under the name PTR when actually it works like the FTR option. There is also a third possibility, FTR obligation, but so far on none of the borders in Europe it has not been implemented. And when we would like to use that one, it would mean longer implementation time, as JAO is not ready for that possibility. And timeframes. Network code foresees a minimum protocol, yearly and monthly timeframe products. On Latvian border, we also have quarterly products. However, on Finnish border, as we have no practice, what will be the demand, how market will react, we would like to start with the minimum products, yearly and monthly. And let's see how it works. And we can always make an amendment in the regional design if actually there is a high demand for also quarterly or any other products. But at the same time, from DSO side, we like to remind that introducing new product will increase fees that DSOs will pay for auctioning process. There are no fees for market participants to participate on the auctions, but there are fees for DSOs, and let's do not run before the train, and let's see if there is need, we can introduce, but beforehand, let's start with the minimum yearly and monthly products. And the form of the product, there is, please put the, there is, so it's just to explain that according to the regulation, you can have a base load form product, you can have peak load product and off-peak load product, but taking into account that on the power exchange in Baltic region, there is only base load products available, there is no meaning if we would have a peak load or off-peak load risk hedging instruments here. So we set in design as requested by legislation that we have base load products. Yes, next slide, please. Now, as proposed, we will have FTR options, and hereby I would like to repeat some main principles what the FTR options are. So FTRs are purely financial in the sense that those rights are cash settled based on the price spread between the relevant zones, as Estonian or Finnish bidding zones. So there is no nomination for physical capacity on cross borders. The product price is set on auction as a marginal price based on all bids submitted by the participants. Auction is held by the single allocation platform operated by joint allocation office owned by Central Europe DSOs. Also, the clearing and settlement is made fully by JAO. And becoming a JAO member is free of charge for market participants. The charges will be connected only with setting the collaterals. So the cost for collateral will be there, but no participation fee or no fee for putting the bids on auctions. And the FTR option after buying gives the holder the right to collect revenue generated by the amount of megawatts he holds. In easy words, basically DSOs are collecting bottleneck income or congestion rent from day-ahead market, and DSOs will sell the right to participants to get this congestion rent for the megawatts they hold. And there is one more important thing on FTR options, that they are directional. So if we have FTRs from Finland to Estonia, then we consider that the price spread is positive if the price is higher in Estonian area. Now, if the price would be higher in Finnish area, then this is considered negative, and there will be no revenue for the FTR holder. Also, if there is no price difference, there is no congestion, then the revenue will be zero for the FTR holder. And FTRs can be resold or so-called transferred or returned after you have bought some. And I will go into details in next slides on this return and transfer process. Yes, and now I would like to introduce the FTR auction process as a first insight to you and to show you that it's actually quite easy. So there are three parties. There are market participants as you. There are DSOs as the base asset owners, the congestion rent owners, and then there is a single allocation platform, JAO. The process actually starts already like three to 2 months before the year the products are on. It starts with the auction calendar, which is agreed between the DSOs and JAO, and JAO will publish the auction calendar for all auctions for all borders, which will take place on next year. Now, before the auction, for example, yearly auctions are usually in the end of November or in the beginning of December. DSOs will calculate the available transmission capacity for financial transmission rights based on the latest known information on grid. And relevant DSOs will send this those capacity values to JAO, who will publish this information on its webpage. There is also the time for a bidding period for all market participants. Now, if market participants have become a JAO member, they can place bids to all auctions on all borders they are interested in. After the bid period is ended, JAO will calculate the auction marginal price and publish it on its webpage. There you can see also all the bids submitted, but not who made the bid. And after the auction results are final, YAO will send a credit invoice to TSO for the capacity sold, multiplied with the auction price, meaning the marginal price from the auction, and debit invoice to auction participants who have gained the capacity. On yearly capacity, market participant doesn't need to pay all the capacity for all the hours in the year right away. On first month, so in December, you will pay for January and February only, and in January you will pay for March. So it's each month you will pay part of the capacity for upcoming period. And the same process goes for next time frame. So on Estonian-Finnish border, the next time frame will be monthly. Before the auction, DSOs again will calculate the capacity values based on the latest known information. We'll send the capacity values to YAO, who will publish it on its webpage with a bidding period. Market participants will make their bid. Auction results will be published, and credit invoice will be sent to DSOs and debit invoice to market participants. So after the auction, we can say that FTRs have been bought, and rights for the congestion rent have moved from DSO actually to market participants. Now, after the product period has ended, YAO will calculate the remuneration for each market participants based on the day-ahead market coupling results. The price different on Estonian-Finnish border. YAO will send the debt invoice to TSOs, who will pay the congestion rent to YAO, who will divide it between the market participants based on the megawatts of FTRs they have bought, and will pay it out with a credit invoice. As far as I know, it's self-billing, so YAO will issue the invoice and will pay out the money to market participants. And all the settlement is made by the YAO, and there is no connection between the TSOs and market participants in the auction process or settlement process. Everything is managed by YAO. And on our next webinar, YAO will introduce its platform in more detail, and then you can ask more detailed questions on the settlement, on the collaterals, what tools can be used, and all that. So if no questions, next slide. Oh yeah, here is a picture of the YAO webpage, and here you can see the auction results after the auction has been held. On the left side, you can see the details of the auction. So it's Estonian-Latvian border auction, monthly capacity for 2002 May. On the upper side, you can see when the bids can be submitted. This is the auction time. When the results will be published, and when the results can be considered final. Here you can see also the return deadline. I will come back to this afterwards. This is a quite important deadline for you if you have bought yearly capacity and you want to return it for the monthly products. Then here you can see the auction results based how much capacity was offered by DSOs, how much was returned. On this example, there was no return capacity, and how much was demanded, the demand of the capacity, and the marginal price. On the chart, it's all visualized, so you can see what was the price that was willing to be paid by the market participants for the first megawatt. And it's also seen that some capacity was actually bid for zero price. So you can place your bid with zero price also. And on this left side, you can see that there is a button export beats. So you can export all the beats in Excel, so you can use them for making your future strategy. And here you can, on left side, you can also see how many participants made the bid. Here is 22 participants made the bid. However, only 10 participants were successful. And the A codes for successful participants are published. So based on the A code, you can find the company. And this is important if you want to participate in the secondary market. So if you would like to find someone who could sell you the FTRs if you, for example, weren't successful, but you still want to own some FTR for risk hedging. Next slide, please. Yes. So let's look the option to resell or transfer the FTRs that you have bought. So FTR holders may transfer some or all of the instruments to another registered participant. So the opposite side has to be also registered on the Chow platform. And you can transfer a minimum volume of 1 megawatt over 1 hour. And after the transfer, all rights and obligations will be moved to new owner, except the marginal price from the preliminary auction. This obligation to pay this to Chow will stay to the first owner of the FTRs. And for this transfer process, to make it easier, Chow facilitates notice boards free of charge for everyone, so you can put up there your buying or selling wish. But it's important to notice that you cannot sign agreements on this Chow notice board tool. It's only to find an interested party. So the agreement has to be signed bilaterally between two parties. And the price for the FTRs you transfer will not be visible to other parties or to Chow. So this is purely a bilateral deal. Next slide, please. And yes, when making the transfer, if you have find your buyer or seller, and after you have signed the bilateral agreement, you have to notice Chow on due time. So it's 2 days before the delivery day, actual delivery day. And it's very important that both of you, the buyer and seller, will notify Chow and will send a confirmation on the transfer. If one of the sides do not make the confirmation on time, then transfer will be cancelled. And even if you have signed agreement bilaterally, the transfer will take place only if Chow have given confirmation to both sides. So please take note on that. And thereafter, yes, the transfer is done, and Chow will move the rights from one participant's account to another's participant account. Next slide, please. And there is an option to return your FTRs after buying. For example, if you have bought the yearly capacity, you can decide that you want to return those FTRs for month of May. So you have to send your wish to Chow via dedicated tool on before the return deadline. So on all monthly auctions, there are specified the return deadline. You have to send the notice to Chow before that. And you can return part or all of the capacity you have bought. And in case of returning, you will get the return price, which is equal with the reallocation price of the FTRs. So if you have bought yearly FTRs, now you want to return it for the month of May, you paid the yearly marginal price to Chao, and in returning process, you will get the marginal price of May. So basically the reallocation price. And if the reallocation price is higher, you will have made some profit. But if the reallocation price is lower than the yearly product price was, then you have loss. And you cannot cancel your return after the reallocation price has been calculated. And if the return is accepted, Chao shall decrease the total volume of the FTRs held by the respective right holders by amount returned. Yes, and you will lose all the rights and obligations to get the congestion rent or this remuneration for that period for those FTRs. Well, this is the return process. Are there any questions on return or transfer process?
Please not on the chat. And no hands raised, so if you have a question, please.
Well, if not, then I once more invite you all to participate in the public consultation.
Sorry, yes. There is one question, yes. From Rickard Nilsson. Just to check via an easy example, if the FTR option for month January from bidding zone A to bidding zone B gives a price of €2 per megawatt hour, then the holder of 10 megawatts pays to Chao a total of €14,880. If then the stock price difference between the bidding zone A and bidding zone B for the January period ends up to being €3, the holder would receive a payment of €7,440 from Chao. While if the price difference is below €2, then the holder will never have to pay anything more than original €2 per megawatt. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm not very good with this calculating by heart, but yes, the settlement is done in two parts. First, after the auction, you will pay for the FTRs you bought, so this €2. And after the product period, you will get the remuneration. So in this example, if the price difference was €3, you will get €3. If the price difference was €1, you also get this €1, but you have bought the €2, so you still have a small loss.
Okay, then he continues, why are the FTRs not freely retradable between the market parties and only as a process towards Chao?
Because the settlement is made by Chao. Chao needs to know to whom to place the invoices, credit or debit invoices. Of course, you can make any agreements without involving Chao, but then also all the settlement needs to be done between those two participants themselves, and there is a risk of whether those payments will take place. If you do it via Chao, you do not have opposite side risk. Any other questions?
Not here and in a chat, and no hands. Let's see. Okay.
Well, any questions can be addressed also to Erki and me in Elering or Juha, Satu or Marja in Fingrid. And yes, the consultation will end in 13th of May, so you still have one week to give your opinion via NSOE consultation tool. So thank you, and let's give floor to Satu.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Satu Viljanen and I work for Fingrid in market design here and much less experienced with the LTTRs than Airi, since we don't have them in any of the Finnish borders yet, but soon hopefully we will have them introduced towards Estonia. And this brief presentation is about the regional annex to the harmonized allocation rules that is also being consulted at the moment and can be found on the NSOE consultation hub. I have later a link to that consultation as well. And basically, yeah, I already explained about the LTTR auctions that take place at YAO, and then perhaps only my addition to that one would be that by becoming the participant in YAO, the market participants accept the harmonized allocation rules, and those rules are common to the whole EU, or the main body of those rules are common to everyone in the EU, but then the harmonized allocation rules, the HAR, can also include regional or bidding zone specific annexes, and it's specified in the FCA regulation what can be put into the regional or bidding zone specific annexes. I have extracted the paragraph or a provision from the FCA regulation, but perhaps the most interesting part here is point D, which talks about the regional compensation rules, because that is most typically addressed in those bidding zone border specific or regional annexes. So if regions want to set some caps to the compensations that can be paid out then they have to specify those rules in the regional annexes. We'll explain a little later how that works, but let's go on. Some general rules on the firmness. Again, Airi explained how the results of the auctions become firm that is after the contestation period. After the auction, the results are considered final, and then following that, the FTR holders are entitled to a remuneration that depends on the volume that they hold and the price spread between the bidding zone, if the price spread is positive in the direction of the option. However, then in certain situations, the TSOs may or are allowed to curtail the already allocated long-term capacities. And if such a curtailment would take place, then the LTTR owners nevertheless receive compensation, and then the rules for the compensations, they depend on what is the reason behind the curtailment. And the curtailment could occur if there is a fault, if the DC interconnectors, for example, are faulted and out of operations for a longer period of time, then it can be that not all the capacity that has been sold in the allocations before can be guaranteed, and then a curtailment may take place. Next slide, please. a distinction is made between the day-ahead firmness deadline and which is currently at 11 o'clock Central European time, and if curtailments is made before this day-ahead firmness deadline and the curtailment is due to a force majeure, then the LTTR holders get back the money that they paid in the original auction. So the marginal price, that was the price of the auction that is returned to the holder of the LTTR. Then if some curtailments are made in order to maintain the operational security limits, then the holders would get the price spread between the bidding zones, if that can be calculated, and if that cannot be calculated in the day-ahead markets, then the original price would be returned to the holders. Now, in the Nordic and Baltic markets, the second condition, that the original marginal price would be returned, that cannot really happen because we have a fallback measures in the day-ahead markets, which guarantee that there is always a price. If the price cannot be calculated, then we use a reference price, and so we always have the price spread in the Nordics and Baltics, and then we would have that between Estonia and Finland as well. And if some curtailment were to occur after the day-ahead firmness deadline, then there is some provisions in the CSM regulation, namely in Article 72, that would then apply. And again, a force majeure could be the justification, and in that case, original marginal price would be returned, and in emergency situations, the price spread basically would be paid to the holders of the auctions. I guess these the day firmness deadline or the nomination deadlines, which can also be stated in some of the documents, they don't make such a big difference as we're talking about the financial transmission rights. But if we had physical transmission rights, then this would be more significant, because the curtailment would mean that no nominations can be made by the market participants. We can move on. And then force majeure, as that was treated differently, then of course justifications. If a TSO would trigger a force majeure, then justifications can be asked by the NRAs in that situation, and usually there's some provisions in the CSM regulation that explains what can be considered, or that lays down the rules what can be considered as a force majeure, and also the typical ones would have to be an unforeseeable event, unusual event that cannot be really prepared for. But I guess if a force majeure was to occur, that would be more or less always a case-specific assessment whether the event actually then qualifies as a force majeure. I don't know if anyone has ever triggered that. Perhaps it's a question to JAR also when they present something that so they would know. Yeah, let's move on. Mentioned the compensation cap that can be put in the regional annex of the harmonized allocation rule. The background or the provision that allows this is the Article 54 of the FCA regulation, and the purpose of this cap is to ensure that the compensations that are paid out from the congestion income do not surpass the congestion income, that it can be any payments can be covered by the income on that border. The caps are different for AC and DC interconnectors. The main rationale there being that the DC interconnectors, if they are faulted, they can be then out of operation for a much longer period, because typically they are subsea cables, and preparing them can take a much longer time. So there, it's a monthly cap that may be proposed for the AC interconnectors, the cap would be a yearly one. And if this compensations to the market participants would be capped, then the reductions would be determined on a pro rata basis. On the next slide, there was how the cap is defined, and first restating that congestion income collected in all time frames should be higher than all the remunerations and compensations paid. And since the cap is a monthly thing, then 1/12 of the yearly income is considered as the income from the yearly auction for any relevant month. Then on Estlink, we don't have seasonal or quarterly incomes. We would have the monthly auction income would be any other long-term income in our case, and then the daily income that is generated in the day-ahead markets would also be considered as the congestion income and this border, and then deducted from the total amount of congestion income would be any remuneration paid out from that income, and that has to be positive, or that the payment cannot end up in as negative. Then the next one, the document being consulted in Baltic or as a Baltic CCR regional specific annex to the harmonized allocation rule proposes that on the Finnish and Estonian bidding zone border we do apply this compensation cap, and it's a DC interconnector, so it's a monthly cap, and the document can be found behind that link, and again the reason being that the cash flow from the LTTRs should not be negative, and this way we ensure the fair treatment of the grid users, because if this was not the case, then they would be in a risk of having to cover losses from the TSO's financial trading of the LTTRs. So that is basically the rationale, and these caps exist on all regions, and particularly important for the DC interconnectors, which may be out for a longer period in case of fault. I guess that was all from my side. Thank you. No questions I can see, then I guess we move on to next steps, and that would be yes.
Yes, so I will happily introduce how far have we become so far, and what are our next steps. Latest developments. Firstly, of course, those public consultations that we are introducing currently. So the regional design and regional annex for Baltic region. The consultations started already on 13th of April, and you are all welcome to give your opinion until 13th of May via ENTSO-E public consultation tool. Yes, and then regarding the EU-wide methodologies that need to be implemented in Finland, we have already submitted those to Acer for approval on the 19th of April. Acer has up to 6 months to issue a decision. However, we hope, and Acer has shown support and have indicated that hopefully they will make the decision faster. Let's see, let's hope. Regarding FinGrid becoming a party in single allocation platform, the dialogue has already started. They have had multiple meetings with JAO and until now, JAO has indicated that from their side, if everything goes as planned and all the consultations and decisions from regulators' side come on time, then JAO will be ready to start auctions already in autumn. And also Elering and FinGrid have put some effort on finding the common understanding on the capacity values that we can auction, and we have made the first draft bilateral agreement on capacity calculation and splitting. We are planning to submit it to NRAs for a shadow auction and a shadow opinion, and after that we will consult this also publicly. We will let you know when we are ready for consultation. And our next public webinar is on the 10th of June, so please mark it into your calendars. Then we hope that we are ready to introduce this capacity splitting methodology, and also we have invited JAO to give guidance on how to become a member in JAO platform. What are the possibilities? Do you need any IT development? I can say that actually no, you can do it quite easily. What are the requirements for the collaterals and all that? And as already said, yes, there is no fee on becoming a JAO participant. So there is no cost for just becoming a member, and then you can decide whether you make a bid on auction or not, and whether you set the collateral or not. Next slide, please, Maria. Yes, thank you. So as we last time stated, we have made two possible scenarios for our implementation project. So we had this standard scenario if you take into account all the time that the NRAs have to make a decision, and the fast scenario if there is a chance to give the opinion faster. And currently we can say that in all our tasks we are in fast scenario line, so we still have a good possibility to have the auctions already in autumn. And yeah, we will send those slides for after the webinar. You can go in more detail with those tasks we have listed here. Maybe on next slide, yes, here is this task 4. Then we plan that we can submit the methodologies to Acer in May. Actually, we managed to do it already in the middle of April, so we are 1 month ahead with this work. And yes, now we have marked that the third workshop, the task 6, we have the date 10th of June. So you are all are invited to participate also on next webinar. Are there any questions on the implementation project?
Not in the chat box regarding the time schedule, but there is one question from Rickard regarding the force majeure. Shall I read it? Since FTRs are not giving a right to any cross-zonal capacity, I presume that no force majeure can ever be applied for the FTR holders, or at least not above what may be allowed in FCA guideline, as perhaps was illustrated in the slide with the monthly cap formula.
Marja, will you answer or I try to?
I can try, and then you can
complete.
Yeah, you can you can correct or add something. I guess you could have a force majeure. If I'm thinking, for example, in Estlink's case, because there's two interconnectors, and if we have sold in the yearly auction some specific amount, and then we have one cable that is in maintenance, and then something suddenly happens to the other one that would qualify as force majeure, then we would have some obligations, but we would not have any congestion income. So in that case, it might be that the force majeure could be triggered in this also to the option holders, but again, then it would be a case specific assessment whether that would really be the case, and it could be that it's handled with the compensation.
Yes.
And then there's another question. Or Airi, do you want to add something?
Yeah, maybe just that according to the network code, the base asset is a congestion rent, and if TSO cannot get the congestion rent due to force majeure, then it's considered the force majeure for the FTRs. And yes, there is a question on the example. Okay. So we discussed those possibilities. So Satu, maybe you can give one.
Yeah, it would be the same, that if there was something happened that there isn't available as much capacity that has been assumed, so the congestion rent would not be enough then to cover what increase. Rickard has raised his hand.
Is it allowed to speak or?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, you are. Okay. You are allowed to raise your hand, Rickard.
Apologize for saying that my examples are simple. Maybe they aren't so simple. So, but thanks. No, why I can just say why I just was asking for that, and I do, and I'm quite well versed in the original versions of FCA guideline. I happen to had the pleasure to discuss how that should be formulated 10 years ago from Europex. But one of the things is that while I understand completely the reasoning for potentially not or going to cut the sort of what can be remunerated from a trader, from a hedging perspective, it could be a challenge because well, if capacity is not available, then one can expect that the price difference between, for example, Finland and Estonia will go up a lot, one way or the other, or up or down. But anyway, and that, of course, if you have a position in either Finland and Estonia that you use this FTR as a way to sort of hedge part of that risk, well, then that suddenly is not worth much because you are not getting remunerated in accordance to. I mean, if you bought something for the value of 3 and suddenly the value of 10 is 10 in reality, and you cannot get that difference because capacity wasn't made available. Well, for your position, it is not much helpful because you're then ending up potentially buying, if you're a buyer in Estonia, at +10. So I perfectly understand the reasoning from TSOs, but it's just a bit of a could be a matter for those who really use this as a hedging tool for their physical portfolios, but I see that's for the marketplace to think of rather than me as a exchange. But that's just one issue, yeah, I think. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. You want to comment on that or?
Yes, everything said is true, indeed. But at the same time, as Satu said, and at the same time, we have to take into account that that there is also other grid users, and TSO risk should when the costs for offering LTRs will be much higher than the congestion rent than the TSO actually collects, then this will be paid by the grid users, other grid users. And in case of Estonian Finnish border, then we have 2 cables. That's true, and I personally think that this force majeure can happen. For example, if some ship with the anchor destroys the cable and amending or repairing it will take multiple months, then the gap will be actually used probably only for this month that it happened, and for next months we probably will not offer any monthly capacity, taking account that we have 2 cables. Then we calculate the capacity only based on 1 cable. Maybe we cannot offer any monthly capacity then, but the capacity that is sold for yearly, then hopefully it will not be curtailed, or it will be curtailed less. Well, then that's how it is. But yes, thankfully we have 2 cables on Estonian and Finnish border, and that makes this risk lower. However, yes, market participants have to take this gap into account when calculating their risks.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Not yet on the chat, but we have a time still. So we are basically end of our presentations. So now we have a time for the questions or comments. But if there is no, then we of course will close to the webinar. Yes, there is one new message from with this. Are there cases of other DC border then do not have a cap in Europe, or all of them have a cap?
I don't know. I have to check.
Yeah, I think we have to check.
Yeah.
So we will come back on this question. If there is no other participants who knows actually answer on this question, so please. All right. Then I think we thank you all for joining today's webinar, and thank you for questions and the comments, and thank you for the presentations. Then we have a next webinar on 10th of June, where we expect a lot of participations there. We have a Chao there explaining about how to become a member, and like Ari explained in earlier, that they will tell the details for joining to the platform then. And we can perhaps explain more about what is the splitting rules we are agreeing on that time for the border. So how we will allocate possible capacities. Okay, thank you and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.